Hello gorgeous peeps, I'm Chris aka Uncle Spurt and welcome to another thrilling episode of Tech Spurt Weekly, the only weekly tech news show that doesn't really cover much tech news. It's not always weekly and frankly if you call it a show you're being rather generous indeed. And I'm afraid kiddies that this week's show is going to be rather short and dirty, just like your mum. That's partly because the actual interest in tech news is rather thin on the ground this week, and also partly because all of the tech in the entire universe is launching next week. I have a literal pile of gadgetry stashed in that cupboard over there, ready to whip out of the box and brandish in front of the camera for you fine folk next week, so I need to get cracking with all of that, and I need to get myself down Tesco's as well to stock up on whiskey, because frankly the next few days is going to be an utter cock box. Just imagine being stuck in a room with James Corden, Russell Brand, and Mrs. Brown out of Mrs. Brown's Boys, and that's pretty much how annoying it's going to be. So anyway, enough of me yapping. Jingle me! Tech Spurt Weekly! Now, we're all still hanging about the place waiting for OnePlus to finally launch their fresh new flagship smartphones outside of China, but it looks like they might actually be rather busy working on a fresh new pair of budget-friendly smartphones. And the handsets in question are the not at all awkwardly titled OnePlus Nord CE2 5G and a more basic and even more clunkily named OnePlus Nord CE2 Lite 5G, both of which have been a bit leaky on that their internet this week. Now, the original OnePlus Nord CE was a 300 quid bundle of fun, boasting a slick AMOLED screen. You got great battery life on that thing, you got decent performance. In fact, the only piss stain on this otherwise pristine pair of pants was the camera tech, which sadly struggled a bit when it was less than ideal conditions. So here's hoping that the OnePlus Nord CE2 5G can improve on the optics, although so far we only know it's once again going to sport a 64 meg rear shooter. Most of the other specs seem unchanged beyond the Dimensity 900, which may run the show. And you can expect a similar sort of £300-ish price tag when the OnePlus Nord CE2 5G launches, hopefully sometime in February. As for the Nord CE2 Lite 5G, well, this even cheaper blower scraps that AMOLED screen for a slightly bigger IPS panel, while replacing that Dimensity chipset with a Snapdragon 695, as also found in the global version of the Redmi Note 11 Pro, which I only just unboxed, hint hint. That bigger design means the battery capacity has increased from 4,500 mAh to 5,000, while its sibling's ultra-wide-angle camera lens has also reportedly been scrapped to save on cash. And this Lite model should come packing an asking price closer to around 200 quid, but it may also only launch in select regions like India, so we'll just have to wait and see. And next up in the thrilling world of tech news this week, the Realme 9 Pro series launch is almost upon us, and yes, one of these dashing budget-friendly buggers has landed at Tech Spurt Towers. But due to the sadly unkinky restraints of an embargo, all I can actually show you is this here arse end, which, to be fair, is a rather dashing posterior. This light shift design graces the sunrise blue version of both of the new Realme 9 Pro smartphones, and you may be thinking, that Uncle Spurt, he's already so wasted, he actually reckons that the sunrise is blue. But no, cheeky c***, the reason it's called sunrise blue is because when UV rays hit that back end, it apparently morphs into a stunning red colour. Now, this awesome arse is apparently inspired by photochromism? Some fancy pants science bollocks. And apparently more than 200 attempts were actually needed to perfect the pioneer and dual layer photochromic process. I'm definitely going to need a stiff whiskey and a bit of a lie down after this episode, that's for sure. And the new Realme 9 Pro handsets are also slimmer than the older Realme 8 phones, just a gnat's pube under 8mm thick. And I should have more information to share with you on this week Clever Clogs in next week's show ahead of the full-on actual bloody launch. But anyway, that's about all of the highly interesting tech news that's been going on this week, which means it's time for the part of the show that makes me frankly want to go lie face down in a puddle and pray for a lightning bolt to strike my shiny bald head. It's the viewer comments. Viewer comments. Oh! Okay, so first up, Vinishan, sorry if I mauled that pronunciation, says, I came for a pint and a bit of hangover shenanigans. You didn't disappoint. I mean, not disappointing is pretty much all I aim for these days, to be perfectly honest with you, and probably about 99 times out of 100 I completely missed that target, but you, sir, are one of the golden 1 in 100, so thanks for that. And next up, Matt says, Chris, is your life all about getting smashed and reviewing smartphones? fuck yeah, I guess it basically is. But that's one for the tombstone, I guess. Etienne says, Chris, you know you could save valuable video time every week by only telling us when you're not hungover, right? Valuable video time. I like that. You know, that kind of suggests that I could replace me moaning about my sore head with some sort of insightful tech commentary. You're one of our regular viewers. Come on, man. You should know better than that. Next up, Tent Ringer says, Techspert looks like he could do with some Pro Plus. Yeah, basically probably about half a pound of it ground up and snorted right up both nostrils. Should just about do it. TLR says, thank you for the content I enjoy watching. Yeah, that comment kind of feels like it should be read with a highly sarcastic tone. Next up, Leonardo da Vinci says, I have the Huawei P30 Pro and the P40 Pro, but they'll be the last Huawei phones I'll buy. Great hardware, but the lack of Google services is annoying. I mean, there you have it, people. And that's coming from one of the greatest creators and inventors of the 15th century. So, you know, straight up fact. K9 Neo says, you reviewed the OnePlus 9 and its Pro sibling, but how about the OnePlus 9R and the 9RT? Yeah, I'd love to cover them, but unfortunately I think they're still India and China only, and I know I do occasionally review stuff that barely makes it out of China, but I'm actually bracing myself for an absolute flood of fucking phones right now, with MWC just lingering on the horizon, grinding its fist into its hand and just ready to bestow a whole heap of pain on tech twats like me. And it also sounds like I'll have two budget-friendly OnePluses to cover soon, in addition to hopefully the flagships that they ever actually come out here in Blighty as well, so plenty of OnePlus stuff to cover. Next up, Brandon Cole 97 says, hey Chris, what phone are you looking forward to coming out? Well, I've got high hopes for the Pixel 6a. That's definitely one that I'm most intrigued by. Hopefully should be emerging in May at that Google I/O conference. I still absolutely adore the Google Pixel 6. Still go back to it whenever possible. Don't understand people's hate for that smartphone at all. A lot of it seems to be directed at the Pro more than the standard Google Pixel 6. I think it's friggin' fantastic. If they can bring that level of camera tech, or close to at least, to a mid-range to budget price point, then fantastic. Next week, of course, we've got the Samsung S22 blows, which should be intriguing, especially the standard S22. I'm really hoping that's going to be a smartphone, improve on the S21 in terms of the battery life and the performance and other issues that I had with it, especially as it's going to be one of the only compact smartphones of 2022, guaranteed. And of course, I'm really looking forward to the iPhone 14 series, because I love having a phone the size of a planet stashed in my shorts. So I briefly mentioned last week also the possibility of setting up an anime spurt channel, which is just me banging on about anime, naturally. And on that subject, Marty Raven says, I've never watched any anime, but I think you'd be the perfect person to watch with to get started. And SGSTU says, yes, set up anime spurt. I'm new to anime and always looking for new things to watch. Currently working through JoJo and was a bit confused when I first heard walk like an Egyptian in the ending credits. I mean, you gotta love JoJo. That short, the word quirky doesn't even begin to cover it. My favourite scene in the first series was definitely when they're fighting on the roof of a burning house and they fall into the chimney. And I don't know how goddamn long this chimney is, but they're falling for like half the episode fighting inside of this thing. It's brilliant. It's like this, you're expecting them to just pop out at the bottom end of this chimney in Australia or something. It's like whichever Fast and the Furious movie it is, where the big climactic scene is them chasing the plane to get onto it and beat up the bad guys. It's like they're chasing this plane for about 20 minutes. How long is this fucking runway? It's like you don't even need to take off, just drive down this runway and then you'll arrive at your destination. And it looks like J.G. Wright has recommendations for a couple of new shows as well. So we've got Akebi-chan no Sailor Fuku and Sono Bisque Doll Wakoi Wasuru. And that basically seems to translate to Akebi's sailor uniform and also My Dress Up Darling. Both of which sound like they might include massive buckets worth of fan service. The one that I've got my eye on is called Rusty to Bisco. It's basically just another post-apocalyptic style affair where the entire world has been overrun and everything's f***ed. Which kind of feels like how this actual world in real life is shaping up. So watching these animes is actually kind of like future prep. And next, Nick says, Uncle Spurt, don't be fooled by the horror stories about Dublin beer prices. It's not cheap, but it's not that bad. Countering that, JFPK119 says, yeah, Dublin is bloody expensive, but at least when we go on a holiday abroad, everywhere else seems cheap. Yeah, you've got to look on the bright side. Definitely. There's a similar sort of vibe living here in London as well. Like every time I bugger off up north to see the fam, you know, it's great going into a pub and being able to buy a round of drinks that doesn't cost half a kidney and several gold teeth. B says, hello from California. Hello, you annoyingly well-located person, you. I actually used to live in Cali well back in the day, and man, what I would give to go back to 363 days of sunshine a year. Frankly, I'd probably give my left testicle just to get 36 days of sunshine a year, or 3 would be nice. Lord Lucan says, have you ever done a review of a home office or gaming chair? Yeah, I mean, just one gaming chair, specifically this one right here, which my arse is parked on right now. Still liking it, still really comfy. My back feels like absolute bliss, but unfortunately it does still give me lots of static electricity build-ups, so every time I go and stroke a cat I absolutely frazzle the poor f***er. Samuel says, a quick one, where can I get those amazing anime wallpapers that I've seen throughout your videos? I get this pretty often. All you need to do is go to wall.alphacoders.com and they have everything you need right there. The only problem with that website is they've got too many good papers. You could literally spend hours and hours just downloading shiz from it. Next up, Knucklehead says, are the rear fingerprint sensors really obsolete now? Yeah, I mean, pretty much, to be honest. I really can't remember the last time I reviewed a smartphone with a rear-mounted fingerprint sensor, and it's kind of a shame because they were quite good. You know, I think they were just naturally falling apart from sometimes they were far too far up the phone because they were getting so bloody big. So you'd have to be like groping it in a weird way. But you know, the edge mounteds are pretty good as well. I really get on board with an edge mounted fingerprint sensor, and the in-display fingerprint sensors are a lot better than when they first started. That's for damn sure. But yeah, RIP rear mounted fingerprint sensors. Pour out some whiskey for those bad boys, definitely. Actually, no, that'd be a waste of good booze. Speaking of booze, Kit says, you need to try out an Iron Burns. Gin, whiskey, bitters and lemon juice topped with iron brew. Absolutely foul, but it does the job. I don't know, man. Gin and whiskey together sounds pretty intense. Although that said, I really used to like a TVR back in the day. Never thought that would have worked. Tequila, vodka and Red Bull. Yeah, speaking of doing the job, bloody hell, 2 of those and your face would be on back to front. Running low on time anyway, so better make these the last couple of comments. So Marcus says, what's your thoughts on the Xiaomi 12 Pro? It sounds pretty damn sexy, but also massive, as usual. They potentially have a review of the global version coming soon-ish on TechSpert, so stay tuned, fellow Spartans. And then Richard says, I noticed an alarming trend in viewers' comments recently, too many tech questions. To address this, I thought a good debate over the best 80s horror movie should ensue. American Werewolf in London versus The Fly. Ooh, that is a proper tough one. That is, I love both of those films. I'd probably lean towards American Werewolf in London because I really like horror comedies, and that is just like one of the best of all time. Plus it has Rick Mail in it, albeit for about 10 seconds, so that immediately elevates it above everything else. Do love me a bit of The Fly though, that is a great film as well. Jesus Christ, some of the ending in particular, that, oh, so grim. And the bit, the arm wrestling scene, that makes me just shiver every time. Ugh. I've even got a bit of a soft spot for The Fly 2, which is, you know, it's a pretty schlocky, crappy sequel, but I remember watching that, you know, with a few loggers around my mate's house back when I was like 15, 16, whatever, getting absolutely smashed on like 2 cans of Skull and having a damn fine time. But anyhow, yeah, that was a tough one, so yeah, so more of that, certainly. And anyway, a big thank you to everyone who left comments last week. Apologies if we didn't get to yours, because so many great comments on there as always. Please do smash your comments down below and we'll cover as many of those as possible next week. Speaking of next week, what the f is next week? Next week is everything. Jesus Christ, you've got Samsung on Tuesday, the Galaxy S22 series, so hopefully have some sexy hands-on footage of that shiz for you. We've got Infinix launching the same day, so I might have something for you on like Wednesday or whatever for that. I've got a new wearable to cover, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot going on next week, so it's gonna be a busy one. And yeah, TechSpert Weekly is probably gonna be action-packed. We've got some actual tech news, hooray! So yeah, if you are new to this show and you've actually made it this far, then bloody hell, congratulations. Go pour yourself a massive pint because you deserve it. And please do poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell so you don't miss out on all the action next week. And thanks to everyone else who regularly joins me to this part of the show. You're still f***ing nuts, but whatever. Have yourselves a bloody wonderful weekend and I'll see you next week. Cheers everyone, love you.